The massive passenger ship Starweaver drifted silently through space, its elegant shape now dark against the starfield. Inside the ship's main control room, tall figures with silvery skin moved in panic as red warning lights flashed across their screens. All systems are failing. The ship's first officer Blue pressed his long fingers against the control panel, but nothing responded. The AI core is completely dead. We can't even get basic diagnostics. Around him, the bridge crew frantically waved their hands over dead interfaces. The ship's automated systems, which had run perfectly for decades, were completely silent. Even the cleaning robots that normally zoomed through the corridors had stopped working. The Starweaver carried over 3,000 passengers, and none of its crew had ever needed to actually repair anything themselves. That's what the ship's AI and its army of repair robots were for. But now, after passing through an unexpected solar flare, every automated system had failed at once. First Officer Blue looked out the viewport at the unfamiliar star patterns. They had drifted into a sector of space that their people rarely visited, human space. His silver face showed disgust at the thought of asking these primitives for help, but they had no choice. "Send out a general distress call," he ordered, "on all frequencies." The signal spread out across space, reaching the small repair ship Quick Fix as it finished up a routine maintenance job on a mining station. Captain Reed was just finishing his coffee when the emergency alert lit up his console. "This is passenger vessel Starweaver," the message played. "We have suffered complete systems failure. 3,000 lives at risk. Any vessels in range, please respond." Reed recognized the ship design. It was one of those fancy automated alien vessels that never seemed to need repairs. Until they did. He smiled and pressed the response button. "This is Captain Reed of the repair ship Quick Fix. We read you, Starweaver. What seems to be the problem?" There was a pause before the reply came back. Our AI core is non-functional. All automated systems are down. We require immediate assistance." Reed nodded to himself. He'd seen this before. These advanced ships were amazing when they worked, but when they failed, their crews were helpless. They didn't even know how to change a fuse. "Copy that. Starweaver, we're changing course to your position now. Hang tight." As the Quick Fix approached the massive passenger ship, Reed gathered his crew in the briefing room. There were only 6 of them. Small for a repair crew, but each one was worth their weight in gold when it came to fixing things. "All right, folks," Reed said, pointing to the hologram of the Starweaver. "Looks like another case of aliens who forgot how to use a wrench. Jack, Mary, get the basic tool kits ready. And grab the mechanical diagnostic gear. You know their fancy electronic sensors won't be working." "What about their repair robots?" Mary asked, already knowing the answer. Reed laughed. "Dead as doorknobs, I'm betting. These folks are going to get a crash course in doing things the human way." The Quick Fix pulled alongside the Starweaver, looking tiny next to the massive passenger vessel. Through the viewports, Reed could see the alien crew staring at them with a mixture of hope and doubt. Their silver faces clearly showed they weren't sure how such a small, primitive-looking ship could help them. "Starweaver, this is Quick Fix," Reed transmitted, "preparing to dock. And don't worry, we've got everything we need right here in our toolboxes." He patted the worn leather tool belt at his waist. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. These aliens were about to learn that humans hadn't survived and thrived in space by relying on AI to do everything for them. Sometimes you needed an actual person who knew which end of a screwdriver to hold. The adventure was about to begin. The docking tube sealed with a hiss, connecting the Quick Fix to the massive Starweaver. Captain Reed led his repair crew through, carrying their heavy toolboxes. The alien crew waited on the other side, their silver skin gleaming under the emergency lights. First Officer Blue looked down at the humans with barely hidden disgust. These creatures were so small, barely reaching his chest, and those primitive containers they carried. Actual physical tools, like something from a history lesson. "We appreciate your quick response," Blue said stiffly, but I'm not sure you understand our situation. This is a Class 9 automated starship. Your basic equipment won't be compatible with our systems." Reed set down his toolbox with a solid thunk that echoed through the corridor. "With respect, sir, your automated systems are dead. Right now, your basic equipment isn't compatible with your systems either." The human captain opened his toolbox, revealing rows of well-organized wrenches, drivers, and diagnostic tools. The aliens leaned forward despite themselves, fascinated by these strange metal objects. "First things first," Reed said. "We need to check your life support systems, the old-fashioned way." He pulled out a pressure gauge and held it up. Blue's silver face showed confusion. "But without the AI, how can you possibly?" "Like this." Reed walked to a nearby panel and pressed the gauge against it. "Hear that whistle? You've got a pressure leak. And this gauge here shows your oxygen mix is off by about 3%. The aliens stared in shock. Their own sensors hadn't worked since the system failure, yet this human had found a problem in seconds using a simple mechanical tool. Mary, the quick fixes engineer, was already examining another panel. She pressed her ear against it and frowned. "Captain, we've got bearing wear in this ventilation unit. I can hear it grinding." One of the younger aliens, a technician named Green, moved closer to watch. His silver eyes were wide with curiosity. "You can tell that just by listening." "Sure can." Mary handed him a wrench. "Want to learn how to fix it?" Before Green could take the tool, Blue stepped between them. "This is absurd. Our ship has the most advanced repair systems in the galaxy. We should wait for a proper rescue vessel." "Your passengers can't wait that long," Reed said firmly. "Your life support is failing. Now you can either help us help you, or you can stand there and watch. Your choice." The human repair crew spread out through the ship, checking systems and making notes. They used simple tools, pressure gauges, listening devices, and even their own hands to feel vibrations. The aliens followed them, torn between skepticism and growing amazement. Jack, the oldest member of Reed's crew, showed Green how to use a simple multimeter to check power flows. The young alien was fascinated by how the device worked without any AI assistance. "But how do you know what's wrong without a diagnostic computer?" Green asked. Jack tapped his head with a smile. "Sometimes the best computer is the one between your ears. See this reading? That tells me your backup power coupling is reversed. Simple fix, once you know what to look for." By the end of their initial inspection, the humans had identified 17 major problems that needed immediate attention. They gathered in the Starweaver's main conference room to report their findings. "Your ship isn't dead," Reed explained to the alien officers. "It's just stripped down to basics. We can get your critical systems running manually, but you'll need to let us do this our way." Blue looked at the list of problems and solutions the humans had prepared. It was primitive, written on actual paper with a pencil, but undeniably thorough. He thought of the 3,000 passengers depending on them, and his pride finally cracked. "Very well," he said quietly. "Teach us what we need to know." Reed smiled and picked up his toolbox. Lesson 1. Sometimes the best way to fix something is to get your hands dirty. Now, who wants to learn how to use a wrench? The main engine room of the Starweaver was huge, filled with gleaming machinery that normally hummed with power. Now it sat silent, its automated systems completely dead. Jack stood before a group of alien technicians, holding up a simple wrench like a teacher with a piece of chalk. "This," he said with a grin, "is going to save your ship." The aliens looked at the wrench with doubt in their silver eyes. Green, however, stepped forward eagerly. He had spent the last hour learning how to use basic tools, and his initial fear was turning into excitement. "The solar flare didn't just shut down your eye," Jack explained. "It fried your nano repair units too. But look here." He pointed to a large pipe with his wrench. "Your coolant system is still basically sound. It's just the computerized controls that are dead." Green peered at the pipe. but without the nano units to regulate the flow. We do it manually. Jack reached down and turned a large valve. The sound of flowing liquid filled the room. Hear that? That's the sound of coolant moving without a single microchip involved. The other alien technicians moved closer, their curiosity finally overcoming their prejudice. Jack showed them how to read the simple pressure gauges they had installed. It was strange for the aliens to see such basic instruments attached to their advanced ship, but they couldn't deny they worked. Meanwhile, in another section of the ship, Mary was teaching a different group about electrical systems. She had opened a panel to reveal a maze of wiring. Your backup systems are actually pretty simple, she explained. Strip away all the fancy AI controls, and it's just electricity following the path of least resistance, like a river flowing downhill. She demonstrated how to use a simple circuit tester, showing them how to find breaks in the power flow. The aliens were amazed that such a basic tool could diagnose problems their advanced sensors would have taken hours to analyze. Captain Reed and First Officer Blue walked through the ship, checking on the progress. The human repair crew had spread out, each teaching small groups of aliens how to handle basic repairs. I still don't understand, Blue admitted as they walked. How do your people maintain these skills when I could do everything automatically? Reed stopped and turned to the tall alien. Because AI can fail. Like it did today. Humans learned a long time ago not to put all our eggs in one basket. Eggs in. I don't understand that phrase. It means we don't rely on just one solution. We keep the old skills alive alongside the new technology. That way, when something goes wrong, we have options. A loud clang echoed through the corridor, followed by cheering. They hurried to investigate and found Green standing proudly next to a humming power converter. He had just completed his first manual repair. I did it, he exclaimed. I fixed it myself, with just these simple tools. Jack patted the young alien's shoulder. See, sometimes the old ways are the best ways. More successes followed as the alien crew began to grasp the basics of manual repair. They discovered that their own hands could detect vibrations that might mean trouble, that their ears could hear the difference between a healthy engine and a failing one. By the end of the shift, several critical systems were running again, not at full capacity, but steadily and reliably. The aliens were starting to understand that while their advanced technology was wonderful, there was something satisfying about fixing things themselves. There's an old human saying, Reed told Blue as they watched the repair work continue. Give a man a fish, and he eats for a day. Teach him to fish, and he eats for a lifetime. Blue nodded slowly. I think I understand now. You're not just repairing our ship. You're teaching us how to take care of it ourselves. Exactly. And believe me, that knowledge will serve you better than any AI in the long run. The warning came without any fancy alarms or flashing lights. It was Green who noticed it first, using his newly learned skills. He pressed his hand against a ventilation duct and felt the change in vibration. Jack, he called out. Something's wrong with the airflow. Jack hurried over, pressed his own hand against the duct, and his face turned serious. Captain Reed, he shouted into his radio. We've got a cascade failure starting in life support. Reed and First Officer Blue rushed to the life support control room. Mary was already there, checking readings on their portable equipment. The news wasn't good. The main oxygen recyclers are shutting down one by one, she explained, wiping sweat from her forehead. Without the ship's eye to balance the load, the backup systems are getting overwhelmed. We've got maybe 12 hours before the air gets too thin to breathe. Blue's silver skin turned a shade paler. There are 3,000 passengers on this ship. Can't you just restart the computers? No time, Reed said, studying the mechanical gauges they'd installed. Even if we could get the eye running again, the system's too far gone. We need to fix this the old-fashioned way. He turned to his crew. Mary, Jack, start checking every recycler unit manually. I want to know which ones we can save. Green, grab some of your people and help them. The rest of you, We need to find every backup oxygen tank on this ship." The aliens watched in amazement as the humans sprang into action. There was no panic, no lengthy discussions, just immediate, focused work. The humans trusted their senses more than any computer readout. Jack pressed his ear against each recycler unit, listening to the machinery inside. "This one's got a damaged pump," he would say, or "This one's still good, just needs manual adjustment." Mary taught the aliens how to feel the temperature difference between working and failed units. "Too hot means the filters are clogged," she explained. "Too cold means the chemical reactions stopped." Green proved to be an excellent student. He quickly learned to spot problems just by using his senses, teaching other aliens as he worked. "Listen to the rhythm," he told them. "A good unit sounds like a steady heartbeat." The hours ticked by as they raced against time. Reed coordinated the effort, moving through the ship with his paper notebook, keeping track of every working unit and every repair needed. The aliens were surprised to see how effective this simple system was. "But how do you manage without a central computer?" one of them asked. Reed tapped his head. "Humans ran ships for thousands of years before computers existed. We haven't lost those skills. We just keep them ready for when we need them." As the 10th hour approached, they had a breakthrough. Mary discovered that by manually adjusting the flow rates and rerouting oxygen through emergency systems, they could maintain breathable air throughout the ship. "It won't be perfect," she warned. "The air will be a bit thinner than you're used to, but it'll keep everyone alive." The next 2 hours were intense as they implemented the fixes. Humans and aliens worked side by side, turning valves, replacing filters, and adjusting flow rates by hand. It was hard physical work, but no one complained. Finally, Reed checked the last gauge and smiled. "We did it. The system's stabilized." Blue looked at the humans with new respect. "You saved 3,000 lives using nothing but simple tools and your own senses. How is that possible?" "Because sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones," Reed said. "Your ship is incredibly advanced, but it was built by people who understood the basic principles first. We just had to remind it of those principles." Green held up his wrench proudly. "And now we understand those principles too." "You're learning," Jack said with a smile. "But we're not done yet. This was just the first challenge. We've still got a lot of ship to fix." With the life support crisis under control, the quick fix crew faced a new problem. The Starweaver's main power distribution system was failing, and they didn't have the right replacement parts. Mary stood in the ship's storage room, surrounded by alien spare parts that wouldn't work without their AI controls. She picked up a piece of pipe and smiled. "I can make this work," she said, already pulling tools from her belt. First Officer Blue watched with confusion as Mary gathered seemingly random items: pipes, wire, and pieces of metal. "Those parts aren't compatible with each other," he said. "They will be when I'm done." Mary sat cross-legged on the floor and began working. Humans are good at making things fit. Green watched closely as Mary cut, bent, and joined pieces together. She was creating something new from the mismatched parts. The young alien had never seen anyone work this way before. "What are you making?" he asked. "A manual power bypass," Mary explained, holding up her creation. "It's not pretty, but it'll work. Sometimes you have to think outside the box." "Outside the box?" Blue questioned. "It means solving problems in new ways," Reed explained as he entered the room. "Not being limited by what things were designed to do." Jack joined them, carrying a stuck valve he'd removed from another section. He hit it sharply with a wrench, and it suddenly freed up. The aliens jumped at the sound. "You'll break it," Blue protested. "Nope, just fixed it," Jack grinned. "We call this percussive maintenance. Sometimes a stuck part just needs a gentle reminder about which way it should move." As the day went on, the humans showed more of their creative repair techniques. They used simple machines like levers and pulleys to move heavy parts. They rewired systems to bypass damaged sections. They even used bits of their own clothing as makeshift filters. "How do you know all these tricks?" Green asked as he helped Mary install her makeshift bypass. "Experience," she replied. "Every broken thing teaches you something new. Every problem has a solution. You just have to be creative enough to find it." The aliens began to understand. They watched as the humans turned problems into solutions. A broken pump became a manual water filter. A damaged computer panel became a simple control board. Spare parts were transformed into new tools. Even First Officer Blue started to appreciate the humans' methods. He helped Jack create a mechanical timer using nothing but gears and springs from broken equipment. "I never thought about using parts this way," Blue admitted. "Our training always focused on following standard procedures." "That's the difference," Reed said, watching his crew work. "Humans learn procedures, but we also learn to think beyond them. When something goes wrong, we improvise." The biggest surprise came when Mary needed to fix a crucial power coupling. The replacement part was too large, and there was no way to fabricate a new one. "No problem," she said, pulling out a small jar from her toolkit. "We'll use this." "What is it?" Green asked, peering at the gray putty inside. "We call it space tape, but it's really a special kind of epoxy," Mary explained as she worked the putty around the coupling. "It hardens like metal. Not permanent, but it'll hold until we reach a port." The aliens watched in amazement as the putty hardened, creating a perfect seal. It wasn't elegant, but it worked perfectly. By the end of the shift, the power distribution system was running smoothly, even if it looked nothing like its original design. The aliens had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most advanced one. "You know," Green said, helping to clean up the tools, "I think I understand now why humans are so good at fixing things. You don't just repair, you reinvent." Reed nodded. "That's right. When you can't fix something the normal way, you find a new way. That's what humans do best." The warning came as a deep vibration that shook the entire ship. Jack felt it first through the soles of his boots and immediately knew something was very wrong. "Captain," he shouted into his radio, "the reactor's destabilizing." In the reactor control room, red emergency lights cast an eerie glow over the worried faces of both humans and aliens. The massive fusion reactor that powered the Starweaver was losing containment, and without its AI controls, the safety systems weren't responding. "How bad is it?" Reed asked as he rushed into the room. Mary pointed to a simple mechanical gauge they'd installed earlier. The needle was deep in the red zone. "The magnetic containment field is failing. We got maybe 20 minutes before total reactor collapse." First Officer Blue's silver face showed real fear for the first time. "We need to abandon ship. Even our most skilled engineers couldn't stop a reactor collapse without the AI systems." "No," Reed said firmly. "We're not giving up. 3,000 passengers are counting on us." He turned to his crew. "Jack, Mary, we're going to have to do this manually." "Manually?" Blue's voice rose in panic. "That's impossible. The reactor controls are too complex for manual operation." "Nothing's impossible," Reed said, already pulling tools from his belt. "The principles are the same as any other fusion reactor. It's just bigger." The humans moved with quick purpose. Mary started connecting manual gauges to key points around the reactor housing. Jack pulled out the mechanical backup controls, systems so old and simple that the aliens had forgotten they existed. "Green," Reed called to the young alien technician, "I need your help. You've learned our ways better than anyone else here." Green stepped forward without hesitation, though his silver skin was pale with fear. The other aliens watched in disbelief as the humans prepared to attempt something their advanced civilization considered impossible. "The containment field is generated by these magnetic coils," Jack explained quickly, pointing to a diagram. "We need to balance them manually to stabilize the reaction." Mary set up a row of simple pressure gauges. "These will show us the field strength. When I give the signal, turn your control wheel exactly as we practiced earlier." Reed looked at his crew and their alien helpers. This is going to be tough. We'll be adjusting the magnetic fields by hand, using nothing but these gauges and our own judgment. One mistake, and he didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what a reactor collapse would mean. 10 minutes. Mary called out, checking her gauges. The humans took their positions. Reed and Jack would handle the main control wheels, while Mary read the gauges and calculated the adjustments. Green stood ready to help, while the other aliens watched from a safe distance. Beginning manual containment, Reed announced. On my mark. The next few minutes were intense. Reed and Jack turned their wheels in perfect sync, adjusting the magnetic fields fraction by fraction. Mary called out readings in a steady voice, while Green helped monitor the backup gauges. Field strength at 60%, Mary shouted. We need more power to the lower coils. Reed's arms strained as he turned his wheel. Sweat dripped down Jack's face as he matched the movement. The reactor's angry rumble grew louder. Come on, Reed muttered. Come on. Suddenly, the rumbling changed pitch. The gauges began to steady. Field strength stabilizing, Mary called out. Keep it right there. For 5 more tense minutes, they held the reactor steady through sheer human skill and determination. Finally, Mary looked up with a tired smile. Reactor contained, she announced. We did it. The aliens stood in stunned silence. They had just witnessed something they had been taught was impossible, controlling a fusion reactor without computers, using nothing but human skill and simple mechanical tools. First Officer Blue stepped forward, his voice filled with awe. How? How did you know this would work? Reed wiped sweat from his forehead and smiled. Because sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. Your ship may be advanced, but the basic principles of physics haven't changed. Neither has human determination. 3 days after the reactor crisis, the Starweaver limped into the nearest space station under its own power. It wasn't running on AI anymore. Instead, every system was controlled manually, guided by human ingenuity and alien hands working together. Captain Reed stood with First Officer Blue on the Starweaver's observation deck, watching as space tugs guided them to a docking port. The massive ship moved slowly, but it moved. A week ago, I wouldn't have believed this was possible, Blue admitted. Running a ship this size without AI or automation. We thought it couldn't be done. Reed smiled. Sometimes the biggest obstacle isn't the problem itself, it's believing it can't be solved. Throughout the ship, the changes were obvious. Simple mechanical gauges had replaced dead computer screens. Handwritten maintenance logs hung next to silent robot charging stations. The ship looked less elegant now, but it worked. In the engine room, Jack was giving his final lesson to a group of alien engineers. Green stood at his side, now confident enough to help teach others. Remember, Jack said, holding up his trusty wrench, these aren't just backup tools. They're your connection to how things really work. Don't let your eye do all the thinking for you. Mary was in the maintenance bay, showing alien technicians how to build their own mechanical bypass systems. She had drawn simple diagrams on paper, showing how to turn complex automated systems into simpler manual ones. The important thing, she explained, is understanding the basic principles. Once you know how something really works, you can always find a way to fix it. First Officer Blue gathered the human crew for a final meeting. The tall alien looked different now. His silver face showed new lines of experience, and his hands were marked with calluses from working with tools. Our people have become too dependent on automation, he said. We've forgotten the importance of understanding our own technology. You haven't just repaired our ship. You've taught us something valuable. Reed nodded. Every tool is only as good as the person using it. AI and automation are wonderful things, but they should help you do your job, not replace your knowledge. That's why we'd like to make an official request. Blue continued. Our government wants to establish a training program. We need human engineers to teach our people these basic skills, to help us remember what we've forgotten. Green stepped forward eagerly. I've already volunteered to be one of the first instructors. I want to teach others what I've learned about manual repairs and problem solving. The human crew looked at each other with pride. They had done more than just fix a ship. They had helped bridge the gap between two civilizations. We'd be honored to help, Reed said. Knowledge should be shared, especially the basic skills that keep us alive in space. As the humans prepared to return to their own ship, the aliens gathered to say goodbye. Many of them now carried tools on their belts, just like their human teachers. You've changed how we think about technology, Blue told Reed. We saw your simple tools as primitive, but now we understand. True advancement isn't just about having the most sophisticated systems. It's about understanding how things work at their most basic level. Green hugged Jack, careful not to crush his smaller human friend. Thank you for teaching me to trust my own hands and senses. I'll never forget what I learned here. As the Quick Fix undocked from the Starweaver, Reed took one last look at the massive ship. Its hull now bore the marks of their repairs. Patches, bypasses, and manual controls that showed how human ingenuity had saved the day. You know, he said to his crew, I think we learned something too. No matter how advanced technology becomes, there's no replacement for human knowledge, creativity, and determination. Mary nodded, patting her toolbox. After all, the simplest solutions are often the best ones. The Quick Fix turned away from the station, ready for their next repair job. Behind them, they left not just a repaired ship, but a lasting legacy of human wisdom and practical knowledge that would change alien civilization forever.